Hello and welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich. And you know what I don't think we talk enough about? I don't think we talk enough about the fact that money is power. And I don't mean in that like cold corporate Wall Street kind of way. I mean like in that human way, right? More money gives us more choice, gives us more freedom, gives us more options, gives us the ability to say, no, I'm not going to choose this, or I'm not available for that, or it gives you the option to decide, right, what you want your next chapter to look like. And in this moment in time when the world feels chaotic and women are subtly discouraged to disconnect from power, and not in obvious ways, right? Nobody's saying, hey, women don't make any money, but it shows up in quieter ways, right? Like, be grateful for what you have. Don't rock the boat. Now's not the time to make big moves, right? What happens then is we're hearing this subconsciously, right? And we're in this moment in time right now when the world feels chaotic. Women are kind of quietly encouraged to get smaller and softer and quieter. And that is absolutely not the moment to shrink. It's not the moment to pull back. It's the moment to get louder. It's the moment to make more money. It's the moment to step into, right? And it takes courage. It takes courage. And I think we need courage right now because women are still underpricing their work. They're over delivering and hesitating to be fully visible, hesitating to share their voices authentically, especially on LinkedIn. So I want to just kind of offer something today that might feel a little bit uncomfortable and ask you, like, what if this isn't a marketing problem? What if it's a power problem? What if your question isn't really, how do I get more clients? What if the catalyst for your success is the question, how available am I for more power? Because more money is not just about more income. It's about more choice, more responsibility, more influence, right? More visibility. And that is how we change the world. I want there to be more wealthy women in the world. I think women with money is exactly what this world needs right now. And we have to take it upon ourselves, one individually, right? One person at a time to get there. And, a lot of people, a lot of the women that listen to this show, they think they have a LinkedIn problem and they're coming here for me to help them get out of their LinkedIn problem, which I'm all for, right? Or maybe they think they have a visibility problem or a consistency problem, but I don't think that's actually it. Like, what if the real thing underneath all of that is that you're only available for a certain level of power and influence right now? And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean that in a human to human, heart to heart way. Because your current level of income, of visibility, of recognition, it's not random. It's what feels safe for you. So stay with me here for a minute and just kind of imagine if your income doubled this year, what would actually change? Not in your bank account, right? But in your life. Would you have the freedom to say no more often, right? To make bigger decisions, to be more visible, to have more people watching you? And it probably isn't going to feel more comfortable, right? It might feel like a stretch. And that stretch is where women pull back. And that's because there's a level at which you are currently regulated financially, emotionally, visibility wise, right? And when you start to move beyond that level, you don't just expand, you self correct, right? Not consciously, subconsciously, right? You open LinkedIn and you don't post, or you rewrite your headline for the 9 millionth time, or you almost raise your prices, but you don't. You almost send that message to that influencer, but you wait. And then you're back in your comfort zone. And here's what I want to say about that. You're not stuck. You're regulated. And that sounds like a good thing, right? Like being regulated sounds like a good thing. Your nervous system isn't trying to sabotage you, right? It's trying to protect you because more power means more visibility and more opinions and more expectations. And, if that doesn't feel safe, you're going to unconsciously avoid it. And that's why I see women procrastinating, right? I'm taking one more class. I need one more certification, right? So you spend weeks like maybe optimizing your LinkedIn profile and then you don't push save. You start showing up and then you disappear. Not because it didn't work, but because it did work. Like this isn't personal, it's cultural. Women have not historically been encouraged to hold power, right? We've been encouraged to support, to nurture, to contribute, not necessarily to accumulate, not to say, I want more, not to say, I'm going to take up space, I'm going to build wealth. And now, in this place in time, when the world feels so uncertain, that conditioning gets louder because safety becomes the priority. And I get that. I get that. So even like the highly successful women are softening their messages, minimizing their results, hesitating to step into and fully own their expertise, not because they don't know how to, but because it feels safer not to. And this is the part that I really want you to sit with. If power has never felt safe, you're going to unconsciously avoid the things that create it. And this is your business and your wealth and your life, right? So let's talk about this as it relates to LinkedIn for a minute, because, I'm me. Because I think we've been taught to think of LinkedIn as a visibility platform. And I just want you to think of it a little bit differently today, just for today, and think of it as a power platform. A place where you can shape how people see you, a place where you can demonstrate your authority, a place where you can attract decision makers, right? A place where you can create more opportunities for yourself. So when you soften your language and hide your results and avoid being specific and avoid being controversial or avoid being authentic, right? You're not just being nice, you're opting out of your power. Like, for example, if your LinkedIn headline says, I help women with their business, that's safe, right? But it's not powerful, right? So comparing that to, I help established women entrepreneurs position themselves as industry authorities and get paid like it, right? That's different. That's clear. That holds power. You know that I don't believe that your LinkedIn profile is a bio. It's not your biography. It's a power statement. And if you dilute your message, you're diluting your influence and you're diluting your pricing ability. You're diluting your ability to sign contracts at those, 5 and 6 figure levels. And P.S. Those contracts are there. Somebody is signing those contracts. It's not like you're creating the 6-figure contract for the first time in the history of humanity. There's many, many, many 6-figure contract opportunities out there. And they're all on LinkedIn. And if the thought of you signing a 6-figure contract makes you step back, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Right? That's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you're hearing this, right, and you're thinking, okay, so what actually do I do about this, right? Let's make this practical because raising your rates is not just like a pricing decision. It's a power decision. And I will tell you that I have a personal commitment to knowing that whatever my rate is, I am committed to making sure that the value is 10 times that rate. That's my personal commitment. So I want to give you like a simple 3-part framework now that I'm going to call the power raise system. We're going to raise your rates. Okay. So part 1 of this 3-part system is to clean up your positioning because power requires clarity. The more clarity you have, the more money you're going to make. So if your positioning is vague, your pricing will feel shaky, right? So get really clear on what you actually do and who you do it for, right? Like you don't want to say like, the example of, I'm a doctor, I make $1. I'm a surgeon, I make $10. I'm a heart surgeon, I make $100. I'm a left ventricle specialist, I make $1,000, right? Be a left ventricle specialist. Be known for what it is you do. Get so clear on what you actually do and who you actually do it for, right? Instead of, I help women with their business. I help people with failed left ventricles have healthy hearts, right? Like I help specific person achieve specific results. And then your LinkedIn profile needs to reflect that instantly and everywhere. If somebody lands there, they need to know exactly who you are, who you help, and how you help them, and why it matters. Because unclear positioning will always lead to underpricing and will always lead to, remember what I said, you want to have a price. If it's $1, it's worth $10. If it's $10,000, it's worth $100,000, right? And in order to sign contracts for those $10,000 or $25,000 or $100,000 dollar contracts, you need clear positioning, because unclear positioning always leads to underpricing. Always. All right, part 2. Decide your minimum standard. Power and wealth come from decisions, not hope, right? Don't base your price on what feels reasonable or what other people are charging or what you think people will say yes to, right? Instead, I want you to ask, what is the minimum I am available to be paid for this level of work? And I want you to notice what happens in your body when you say that number. Because that reaction, my friend, is your current edge. That's your growth. Your pricing is a reflection of what you've decided is normal. And I believe as entrepreneurs, we're giving up. Listen, I love being an entrepreneur because I think that it gives us so many choices in how we run our business and how our business fits into our life as opposed to a paycheck job. Paychecks are nice. They show up in your bank account every Friday, right? So if you're going to give up the safety of that paycheck, and by the way, I think paychecks aren't even safe anymore. I think as entrepreneurs, we probably have more safety because we can control our destiny, but that's another conversation for another day. But if you're giving up that, hey, it's Friday and there's money in the bank opportunity, then make some freaking money, please. Okay. I believe that every single solitary entrepreneur should be looking at $250,000 a year as their benchmark. Because once you start paying all your overhead, your VA, your tools and all that stuff, your taxes, that's what puts $100,000 in your bank account. Now, I'm not a financial analyst. Please don't hire me for that. Right. But I feel like round numbers, shoot for 250, that puts 100,000 in the CEO's bank account. Round numbers. Okay. I know there's people listening to this right now that are saying 250,000, I made 100,000 last year. Okay, well, this year we're going to change that, right? This year we're going to change it. That's why you're listening to this. That's why you're listening to this. All right, part 3. Let's make sure we can receive, right? Power is sustained by systems, not by chaotic energy, right? Raising your rates isn't enough. You need a system that supports those rates, right? So, of course, I think it starts with your LinkedIn presence, a LinkedIn profile that's clear and direct and authoritative. Content that reflects your expertise, not your need to be liked. I don't care how many likes you have on it. I want to know how many calls how many people DM you from it, right? Conversations that you're having with people that are confident and you're not explaining yourself or defending yourself all the time. Because if your systems don't support your new rate, you're going to shrink back to your old ones. Right. And I mean, I'm sure you have similar experiences, but I can remember one time when I had a enrollment coach, somebody who spoke to people on my behalf to enroll them in my programs. And I remember the first time that they came to me and they said, Karen, I need a payment link for $25,000. And I was like, $25,000? Am I giving them a kid? What am I giving them for $25,000? Right. Like if it was me, I probably would have undersold that. Right. And she's like, no, Karen, this is like a long-term contract with somebody who you're going to need to spend a lot of time with. And she's going to need you to bring in your team. She's going to need you to bring in your LinkedIn strategist and your LinkedIn profile writers and your PR strategist. She's going to need that support. My team is telling me that I wasn't charging enough, right? I remember that very, very clearly. And P.S., she was right. Because I had this big, fat, juicy budget, I was able to way over deliver and make that 25K engagement a 250K value. Always my benchmark, right? But you need systems that support that. Okay, so you need to make sure that you've got the systems that support that so you don't shrink back to your old ways. Okay, and listen, I've said this a few times in this episode. When the world feels as chaotic as I feel the world feels right now, women are encouraged to get smaller and softer and quieter, right? But this is not the moment to disconnect from your power. Our voices need to be heard. This is the moment you need to claim more of it. And maybe for you, that looks like raising your rates, simplifying your message, creating one big, fat, juicy opportunity, right? And then finding 10 people that want it, and you got 250K because it's a 25K opportunity, right? And updating your LinkedIn profile to support that and saying what you actually think and creating that 25K offer, knowing in your heart of hearts it's worth $250,000. And you're doing this not louder for attention, but louder for ownership. Because there's, we had a on our last strategy call for our, she's linked up Visibility Salon. we were talking about this, and we're creating, we've got a mastermind that is coming up. And in our mastermind, if you want to know more about that, connect with me on LinkedIn and you can DM me. And the mastermind is a 6-month mastermind, and it's designed to, in those 6 months, for you to generate 100K in income. And basically, as the person marketing this mastermind, in my perfect world, every person in this mastermind in that 6 months, while I'm telling them I want them to earn 100K in income in those 6 months, really what I want is them to earn 200K, because I want testimonials that say, hey, Karen, I joined Karen's mastermind, and the expectation was that we were going to bring 100K in 6 months, and I brought in 250K in 6 months. I want those testimonials, right? So I looked at everybody in that room, and they're all not paying what the people in the mastermind are going to be paying. It's the Visibility Salon is very inexpensive. Check it out at visibilitysalon.com. Get a free trial. I said, like, everybody here can do this. Like, there isn't anybody I'm looking at on this, Google Meet room that doesn't have the ability to bring in 100K or 200K or 250K in the next 6 months. It's a matter of your power, your energy, your attention, your focus, and your belief in your ability to do that. I believe you can do it, right? So you don't need to become someone else to build more wealth, but you do need to become someone who's more comfortable with power. So, like, instead of asking, how do I get more clients? How do I fix my LinkedIn? Maybe ask yourself, where am I avoiding my own power? Where am I choosing comfort over expansion? And what would it look like to actually receive more without apology? Because the women who are willing to hold more power in moments like this, they're not just building businesses, they're changing what's possible for the women who are watching them, that ripple effect, right? So I want to change the world for you, everybody listening, and all of my clients. But you know what? For my daughters and my granddaughters and my sons and my grandsons, right? That's what's possible when we hold more power that leads to more wealth. It brings us more legacy. So if you're ready to stop playing small with your visibility, right, and start using LinkedIn and PR for a tool for some real authority, real influence, and real money, real income, come join us in the Visibility Salon. Because this is where we don't just tweak your profile here. We help you step into the version of you who can actually hold the level of success that you say you want, but you haven't had yet. And because you haven't had it yet, we need to shift, we need to tweak your nervous system to hold more. And listen, I don't want to mess with your nervous system. I want you to have a totally regulated nervous system, but I want you to have a nervous system that allows for expansion. And that's what we're doing in the Visibility Salon. I would love to see you there. And I'm going to see you back here next week with another episode of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. See you then.